Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Mount & Blade Bannerlord and we're bringing you another weapon video. So this one is going to be the top 5 movie or TV swords recreated in Bannerlord. So let's just jump right into it. Same format as before. So this first one here isn't a perfect one, but it's my best attempt to recreate William Wallace's Claymore. And now I couldn't successfully and accurately recreate his claymore from either Braveheart the movie or the historical Wallace sword that is attributed to William Wallace. So I mostly tried to go after the movie sword, but unfortunately the blade isn't perfect because there's supposed to be some leather down at the bottom. And I mean, it's not perfect all around, but it's very close. So this is a very good two-handed sword. It's the best, the closest I come. The parts I made out of this one were the tall eastern pommel, the leather-covered reinforced two-handed horn grip, the ridged western guard, and the wide-fullered broad two-hander blade. Most people know William Wallace due to the film Braveheart, in which the character wielded an enormous two-handed sword. Now, historical accounts of that vary. Many find it unrealistic that he would have, but the Wallace sword, as I said, is displayed in a museum, and most people attribute that to him. That being said, the famous iconic imagery of him using a giant sword is well known and spread all around. So, if you wanted to emulate William Wallace, and channel your inner Braveheart perhaps through a Battanian playthrough, this may be the sword for you. So let's move on to the next one at number 4. So at number 4 we have Excalibur, the legendary sword of King Arthur. Now of course, if you look online you'll find many variants of this sword. But this one I feel is probably the most iconic style for it. So this one is made up of the lordly pommel, the gold-bound decorated steel grip, the golden cascara guard, and the arming sword blade with golden circle imprint. So, like I said, I think this one fits the iconic image of Excalibur that most people think of, even though, historically speaking, the historical basis for King Arthur actually is much earlier in the medieval age than most people place it. So this sword is nothing like what it would have looked like. But with all that in mind, Excalibur is the legendary sword of King Arthur, sometimes also attributed with magical powers or associated with the rightful sovereignty of Britain. So generally speaking, now most forms of, or most Arthurian lore says that Excalibur and the Sword and Stone are different swords. So in most Arthurian lore, it said that he broke the Sword and Stone in battle with King Pellinore, and what then was given Excalibur by the Lady of the Lake in exchange for a later boon. So basically, for a favor. So that being said, Excalibur is the most, famous weapon associated with King Arthur. So if you're going for that mythical medieval super king, look no further than this sword for your role-playing build. So at number 3 we have Ned Stark's sword from the Game of Thrones TV show. And now of course I'm not talking about the legendary Valyrian steel sword Ice, we're talking about the regular arming sword that he would use from time to time, most notably in the battle with Jaime Lannister in the streets of King's Landing. So here, there's limited pictures of this sword available, so I did my best to replicate it, using the parts in the game. So those parts are the faceted weak pommel, the steel-bound plated two-handed grip, the Imperial Wide Lavish Guard, and the Thamaskene Steel Spatha Blade. So I think this matches it pretty well. This guard is a little weird. It's got a ball on one end and then like a hook on the other side. I often wonder if it's meant for a, one-edged blade. But other than that, I think this sword actually matches the one he uses in the show quite well. So if you want to roleplay as someone honorable who eventually, spoiler alert, I guess I should say, just in case nobody's seen it, gets himself killed because he's too honorable and not able to be intelligent, apparently. Intelligence and honor are, they go against each other in Game of Thrones. So as much as I enjoy that show and the books, I think George R.R. Martin may be a little bit cynical. Because oftentimes at least in the books, because the show, it eventually turns into just, a basic show, where good guys are good guys and bad guys are super evil, mustache-twirling, puppy killers. But in the books, he keeps it pretty gray, except for nobody can be honorable and intelligent. He occasionally gets close with some characters, but it almost always gets them killed. So, with that in mind, this is Ned Stark's arming sword, and I invite you to try it out in the game. So let's move on to number 2. So at number 2, we have the Sword of Strider, otherwise known as the Aragorn's Ranger Sword. So this one is going to be the sword he uses in the movies all the way up until he gets Anduril given to him by Elrond in the third movie, or in the books that he has reforged in Rivendell before they even leave right at the beginning. So as you can see, there's a bit of a difference there in the movies and books. Now, it couldn't be recreated perfectly. If it were, the whole handle would be blue. And, you know, the grip would look a little different. But other than that, this is pretty dang close. This one actually turned out really well. So this one is made up of the fine gladius pommel, the half-leather covered wire-bound two-handed grip, the ridged western guard, and the fullered long warsword blade. So this one's actually one that I use quite frequently in the game. I actually really like this build. So if we were just going to talk about the information of this one a little bit, Strider was one of the mysterious rangers of the north, feared and distrusted by the folk of Eriador because of the rangers' grim appearance and nomadic lives. However, the rangers protected these same people from the forces of evil. Strider was in fact Aragorn, the heir to the crown of Gondor. This sword is the plain battle sword he used while on his missions against the agents of Sauron. So both in the books and the show, this, or the books and the movies, this sword served Aragorn for 80 odd years before he ended up taking up Anduril. So definitely a good sword to have, and I recommend you try it out. But let's finally move on to the number 1. So at number 1 we have Boromir's sword from the Lord of the Rings movies. Now, a little background on why I chose this one. A, because it actually matches pretty well to the game. This one actually looks quite a bit like his sword in the movies. B, it is actually my all-time favorite sword from the movies. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have a name, so most people don't automatically think of this one. It's no famous elvish steel sword. It doesn't have a lot going for it, but I just love how it looks in the movies. It's such a cool sword. So this one's always been my favorite sword from Lord of the Rings. So this one here is made up of the arming sword blade with gold engraving, the western crescent guard, the red leather one-handed grip, and the top pommel. So this is actually a decent sword, stat-wise in the game, especially when you consider that it's one of the, easier ones to smith. That being said, a few things different from this one to the one from the show. In the show, the pommel's a little bit different. It actually starts a little bit lower and is even a little bit bigger on top, which is a constant for Lord of the Rings swords. You'll always find that their pommels kind of start down in the handle and go up. Not sure why. I guess it's just an artistic choice. Also, the blade doesn't have any engravings. The fuller goes a little bit higher, but the shape of this one matches really well. And then the guard, well, the handle looks different too because it's the same color, but it's just like wrapped leather. It's very plain. That's one of the reasons I really like the sword. But the one kind of fancy thing about it in the movies is the crossguard is like twisted steel. So it looks very, very cool. This sword also looks really cool. Not as cool as that one, but pretty cool. So this is the description given of it actually in the books. So it says, sturdy and broad-bladed Boromir's sword was forged by the smiths of Minas Tirith specifically for the steward of Gondor's eldest son. Strong and valiant, Boromir wielded the heavy blade one-handed, with shield clutched in his offhand, or horn raised to his lips. So a lot of people like to kind of shit on Boromir. It's funny, I didn't think about it until now, but 2 Sean Bean swords on one list, so that's kind of fun. But anyway, people like to kind of diminish Boromir's achievements because they kind of did him dirty in the movies. If you've never read the books, I definitely invite you to because they're some of the best literature ever put to page. But he's definitely far more heroic and valiant and just a fantastic character in the books. Now, he of course does have his shortcomings, which is one of the reasons I always hate when people say J.R.R. Tolkien couldn't write with nuance. I'm looking at you, George R.R. Martin. His characters were gray. They just weren't terrible. They just weren't awful people. So yeah, this is the number 1 TV/movie sword that you can create in the game. I invite you to leave suggestions down in the comments below for other ones, maybe ones you've made. If you haven't already, join my Discord. That way we can send pictures back and forth. So that sounded weird. But you could submit pictures of weapons that you create. That sounds more appropriate. That way I won't get any unsolicited pictures that I definitely don't want. Hint, hint. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, I don't want any of those pictures. But yeah, definitely join my Discord and we can get some cool sword builds going because that's one of my favorite features in this game and I'd love to explore all sorts of different cool stuff. So with all that in mind, that is the end of this video. I hope you liked it, but we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.